Prohibition ceased operations of the Geisel brewery in 1920, and with the hit of the Great Depression and need of a new job, Theodore Robert Geisel bagged the position as a superintendent over the parks of the city of Springfield in 1931. This included managing the Springfield Zoo, and while managing these areas, he would collect antlers and various leftovers of the expired animals in these parks. And I guess just finding them cool, he would send these findings off to his son, who would then go on to craft these different body parts into these bizarre yet cleverly imaginative taxidermy creatures. The weirdo son in question is also named Theodore, or Ted for short, better known to the world as Dr. Seuss. Okay, I initially assumed this was like a childhood memory, like his dad would come home from work and bring him little dead things. Oh, how sweet. But Ted was born in 1904, so he was doing these arts and crafts like in his 30s. I do wonder how that progression transpired. Like, did Ted already have this just idea of quirky taxidermy and utilize his father's access to body parts, or was his dad just sending him these like cool souvenirs from work, and then he kind of figured a creative way to upcycle the corpses? Like, either way, we love an oddity weirdo, okay? Huge animal lover. His father took him to the zoo every Sunday. Super cutesy. It's funny because Ted was actually known in his personal life to not be particularly fond of children. And I heard this one lady say he was even afraid of them. I get it. I'm afraid too, Ted. I'm afraid too. He was described as a quiet perfectionist. At the end of the day, he's a loner, he's a smoker, and he's a drinker. A true artist.
He simply never stopped playing hooky from the real world. He loved escaping, and it was a protective thing also.
That is literally me. Ted called the eventual collective 19 sculptures his unorthodox taxidermy. And the wild thing about this is, if you know anything about taxidermy, you know the 1930s was a majorly transformative era for taxidermy. Granted, Dr. Seuss was just working with like paper mache and paint for the most part, so he was really just messing around with whatever and making like actually like really impressive sculptures. And it's just, again, really impressive. It's really cool shit. Gotta give him credit for that, in my humble opinion. Work was definitely put in these things, and I think they're super cool. My top three are the Anthony Drexel Goldfarb Seagoing Dilemma Fish and the Kangaroo Bird.
The kangaroo bird, so called because it carries its young in a pouch before eating them on buttered toast. And if it wants an egg, it just lays it.
I feel like if that happened today, people would be like, that's demonic and antinatalist, you bastard. These unorthodox taxidermy creatures hung on the walls of his studio for the entirety of his career. So slay.
They opened up a part of the attic and opened the door, and all of these sculptures came out.
Well, that part of that is true. The Secrets of the Deep collection, which are the fish, he had a hidden room with a door that opened that nobody knew about, filled with the fish.
Ted Geisler actually has a quite colorful career as a freelance cartoonist, working in political and advertisement fields, which are honestly interchangeable in the American context, as well as creating instructional and morale-boosting content for World War II soldiers. And I don't say that lightly. He produced over 400 cartoons as a political cartoonist. He was a key contributor to the Private Snafu series, designed to instruct and entertain military personnel. This included lots of sexual and adult themes and humor. Moving on, but also not, because the honorable mention that I wrote down for this era of his career is the Pocketbook of Boners, full collection. Full collection, boners, more boners, still more boners, and prize boners. Additional compilation, the Omnibus Boners and the second Omnibus Boners. Apparently the best sellers, amongst the best sellers of World War II. Bookshelves full of boners. Dr. Seuss is a doctor in the same way Dr. Dre is a doctor, okay? And his own explanation, to be exact, is a compensation for the doctorate he never received at Oxford, where he had been studying English literature with the intent to become a professor. Seuss was his German mother's maiden name, and it's simply due to mispronunciation that we know him today as Dr. Seuss. He did eventually even officially change it to the anglicized version, so in the end, it really is just Dr. Seuss. He went by his mother's name, not necessarily out of respect for his mother, but just because he was said to be saving his name Geisel for the day he wrote like great American novel or like some other, you know, great works along those lines, which is ironic just because we know him today as this great author already, you know what I mean? Maybe not of the genre he necessarily wanted to be known for. But I don't want to move on from his mother so fast without giving her flowers because she is the one who Dr. Seuss credits for basically all the traits that we know him for his quirky rhymes and his whimsical, imaginative wondrousness.
More than anyone else, Ted later said, my mother was responsible for the rhythms in which I write.
And one of Ted's early memories was of his mother repeating the sing-song version of what kinds of pies were available that day. And even in his 80s, he would sing apple, mince, strawberry, and go through logical ones and then end up with and squash.
Behind every great man is a great woman, and we're not talking about his mommy this time. Helen Palmer, okay, Helen Palmer sat behind him in a class, okay, had a little eye on him or whatever, told him like, you're crazy for trying to become a professor, like that's crazy, like you're so talented, boo, like, and he took her word or whatever, and actually like she's honestly looking into it, she's the reason, she's the like big push for him. It's kind of like she's the one that like took him seriously a lot more than he even did, that type of deal. And she really like they seem to have this like ideal relationship, at least in the beginning, where like she really held her man down to the point of like they going on yearly excursions around the country, and we're talking just like post like Great Depression era. So like she was like, man, you got talent, make us some money, let's travel the world. And they did that. How cute. She herself was very cutesy, very demure.
I always described Helen to my friends as the perfect wealthy lady. She was very polite, but not obviously so. She was gracious. She was always nicely dressed. She was very articulate. She swam every day in the afternoon. Before her swim, she would have tea by herself in the living room, and she would have yogurt in an egg cup. An egg cup's worth of yogurt, plus her tea, and a biscuit of some type.
They eventually moved to LA, where the Army had enlisted the film industry to create a series of, well, essentially like, I don't want to say like propaganda cartoons, but like the series of cartoons to encourage the young soldiers to better absorb the information in lessons at hand. Essentially, Cocomelon for illiterate World War II soldiers. He actually collabed with the guy who created Bugs Bunny to create the private snafu films. They used adult humor, usually with sexual themes, again to appeal to the young male soldiers. The type of stuff that would never make it past the censors to actually see the light of day on actual public television at the time. He ended his 7-year hiatus of writing children's books when he released McGilligan's Pool, and over the next decade, he would continue to release one of his iconic books every single year, this time generating more profit every time. Beneath all the cartoons was a complicated artist, an insomniac. And at night when he couldn't sleep and his mind would wander, he'd cope on canvas. You see, Ted Geisel had a secret collection of private paintings exposing the darker side of his mind. An equally creative, but more introspective and honest side to Dr. Seuss. Today we're going to go over some of the paintings that I resonate the most with or just have the most to say about. There's a whole bunch, so y'all can look it up and go through if you'd like. But these are the Midnight paintings. With its self-explanatory title, needless to say, this piece depicts his anxiety over the creation and release of his next book. Painted in 1959. All right, right before this, in 1957, he had released both Cat in the Hat and How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Both huge hits. Okay, received remarkably well. But he still faced this fear of failure moving forward. The way we know him today as like the most popular and best-selling children's book author of today, he been that. Okay, he been that. Maybe not from the beginning of his career, but like since the release of his books, he's been the GOAT. Okay, and so it's just it definitely goes to show, no matter the success, self doubt is something that will linger and consume you if you let it. You really are your own worst enemy in that sense. Green Eggs and Ham was published August 12th, 1960. So, safe to say, like, this is the book that he was working on in creation of this painting that we're discussing. Um, and that book went on to also become a bestseller of its time and is still one of Dr. Seuss's best works today. So it's just kind of a little silly. It's a little ironic, isn't it? Yeah, I don't know. Don't doubt yourself. Like your next piece could literally be your greatest one. Another fun fact: we actually wouldn't have Green Eggs and Ham today if it weren't for a challenge from his publisher, Bennett Cerf, who challenged him to write a book using only 50 unique words. I've come to find the more I rush a piece, sometimes that work is better than the stuff I put so much detail into. And I think it really is a matter of overthinking your own work. And then also when you're confronted with or applying to your own creative process certain limitations and guidelines and rules, sometimes that can result in a more cohesive work that kind of keeps yourself in a box, so to speak, in a positive sense though. Forcing yourself to stay on theme and maintain one idea when the brain of a artist naturally wants to wander and explore different avenues and kind of dig deeper into literally everything at hand. Sometimes it is better to kind of force yourself to stick to that one thing, and in that way you can ultimately go deeper in just that one theme, if that makes sense, into that one thought, into that one idea. The moral of the story, he had all this paranoia over the release of his new book that ended up being his bestseller regardless. So next time you're tripping over your next drop, just transform that into anticipation that this just might be your greatest work. Yeah, for real. And if you sit with that anxiety, you'll come to realize that those nerves are the same as excitement. Like that anxiety and fear is the same shit as just getting really excited. It's just about mindset and like just I don't know. And your heart is in your heart, baby. Because some people you hear with like a one-hit wonder or a single renowned project, they'll spend the rest of their career like trying to imitate or match up to their own success. To me, that seems a lot scarier than like, will I ever make it? Like, is anybody gonna like this next piece? Dog, I would rather the fuck not. Like, imagine like trying to be back how you. I don't know. Just enjoy the process and appreciate the struggle is all I can tell you, dog. I love that in at least one of his midnight paintings, he did include like a character smoking because it is known to be something he struggled throughout his whole life. A habit he could never really quit. But he was always mindful to not let any children ever see him smoking. And with that being said, here's another picture of a cat smoking. The significant symbolism in this painting are the scoring beats on top. Okay, there's 8 on one end and then 1 on the opposing side. This being, like the character being a cat, implying that he's on his last life, Kitty's got 9 lives, you heard it, you know it. Impressing his whimsical and playful themes onto existentialism. His face is giving devious, giving suspicious. Okay, his eyes are on the ball, not even the line of shot. Like he's so confident that he's gotten in the bag. I don't know if the lady kitty tie is necessarily supposed to have its own significance, but he did often depict the female body, just in general, like all throughout his career, in his different works. He does often again depicts like the female body honestly in a very like playful and rather expressive way. I also feel there's something to be said about this, like the stairs and the general maze like mini golf esque setup of the pool table here. That was a whole bunch of words I just said there, but you know, this situation. Okay, it may be perhaps like the twists and turns of life's past and the moral conflicts on the way, you know. This painting feels very introspective and makes me feel like I just really wish he hid away with these paintings some secret like explanation for them. But I guess again that is I assume the point of these, you know. I mean he made them like in the dead of night when he couldn't sleep, when his mind's wandering the most. Like I'm sure the meaning is all embedded in each stroke of the painting, and if you can't read it, then so be it. Too bad. These were his private works for a reason, you know what I mean? Gosh, you're telling me the woman in the mirror, the most brutal, never-ending battle. This painting so super reminds me of Girl at the Mirror, okay? In like a full circle, like bittersweet type of way. This painting is of a young girl staring longingly with like an if only or why not me type of sadness and yearning. Why don't I look like that? This painting, on the other hand, is a why do I look like that? Do I look like that? Less of a self portrait, more of an interpretation of the behavior he observed from people around him. Miss Birdwoman here has a very sunken expression, almost fearful in a way. A very long face. Okay, and she's very like she has visible wrinkles and very red cheeks. She could be flustered. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to just be a bunch of makeup. The mirror she's holding is notably small, emphasizing her focus on detail. She's focused on minor flaws rather than looking at the bigger picture. In fact, besides herself as the subject and the apparent vanity in front of her, she's just in this like black void. Like all she can see is what she's honing in on in this little mirror, little details. It's like she can see nothing else past the morning of her own youth, as if reminiscing will bring her into the mirror and back to the past, but it never will. I really, really love this one. It's this timid bird thing wearing this like dog costume headset of sorts, and just look at the doggy's eyes. Genius. The hatching on this, like just being done with paint, and really in a lot of his pieces, it is really impressive. Like just the hatching with the paint is like really fun to follow the strokes and like the directions of everything and kind of like imagine zooming it, if that makes sense. Birdie's hands are like think they're gonna notice, like, and
everyone at the head enhancement clinic said nobody would notice.
It's like droopy eyes with a kind of like well, here goes nothing. And then the killer is the dog doesn't look all that like ferocious or even confident either. He's masking behind this crafted image of something that is, though successfully bigger than him, is still carrying this awkward expression in demeanor. And it's almost as if he's so insecure that he doesn't even know what a bigger and more confident character even looks like. It's a sad attempt at hiding behind something he clearly isn't, and a not so subtle endeavor to seem more big and self-assured, but he's fooling nobody. There's a common theme to me that is quite prevalent in these Dr. Seuss works that is quite apparent to me, especially in these midnight paintings, and that is the theme of isolation. Very often the subject of his paintings will be all alone, and sometimes they're smaller, more obsolete, or even sometimes the smallest part of the painting, consumed or overpowered by their surroundings and overall environment. As a description, that might sound, well, lonely, but these lone characters often possess this quality, this tranquil quality of solace and peace being with oneself. It's not a depressing loneliness, instead a peaceful one of contentness. And what we do know about his personality from just about everyone around him was that he was a very private, to himself type of guy. So going through these paintings, it feels obvious which ones are supposed to be self-portraits and which ones are from his observant perspective and point of view as a quiet people watcher amongst society. Both in public works in the beginning of his career and in these paintings he would be creating in the privacy of his own home, they both featured naked women all of the time. Also same. Specifically busty white women. There's this one story he wrote that I guess was like a adaptation of this really, really old story. It's literally just 7 naked women riding around on horses, and so that's what the illustrations are. It's supposed to be a humor story. It's nothing offensive, really. It's just funny being from the Cat in the Hat guy and being from 1939. The Private Snafu series also played around heavily with sexual themes, not downright like showing nude women, but they definitely used breasts as an opportunity, as symbolism.
Our private code.
I've always said big boobs make the world go round, and here they are, educating our troops.
Something new has been added. Booby traps.
Later in his career, the risque stuff was still not necessarily like a secret or anything. It's not like he had this like secret perversion or anything like that. I think he was just more self-aware of his image, being a children's book author, and was like mindful of that, I don't know, point in his career, if you will, and for the sort of content that he was recognized for in life, if that makes sense. But yeah,
Ted had this kind of naughty side. I mean, it wasn't dirty, it wasn't really bawdy, it was just kind of a little bit naughty. When he was working on Dr. Seuss's ABC, a page arrived as if it were a real spread for the book, and it says, Big X, little x, XXX. Someday, kiddies, you will learn about sex. Note, if Bob Bernstein sees any sales problems inherent in this concept, I won't object to substituting my alternative suggestion. Signed, TSG.
but yeah, Ted was a little naughty.
Naughty.
A unique thing I admire about Dr. Seuss as an artist is that his art style is not only so obviously recognizable as Dr. Seuss, but it is extremely consistent. Like from the beginning of his career all the way up to his latest works, they literally look the same. They're like same art style, very Seussian style. The style of his political cartoons from the beginning of his career completely mirror, his latest works, which is like weirdly like eerie in a way when you're seeing like historical figures like Adolf Hitler illustrated in his same like whimsical art style. Is just a little strange, but still very respectable from an artistic standpoint, like just the consistency alone. I've only been drawing for about like 5 years, and every other piece I put out looks completely different stylistically. It really is as if he just picked up a pencil and then started his career as Dr. Seuss. And of course, that's not what happened, as we've gone over, but without watching this video, you probably wouldn't even know better. You know what I mean? Just see all his works and assume that's just like I don't know, that's just his career of drawing, you know what I mean? Short career of drawing, but it literally is from his entire adulthood and just stuck with that same style. I want to say there's not much evolution, but it's really just, it really like, he's just been goated. He's been hit. Like, my favorite thing about Dr. Seuss' work is that his artwork contains this lack of structure and rather playfulness with aspects of reality that would otherwise be that are otherwise absolute in their ways of function and appearance. Things like gravity and trees and the movement of water. If you analyze his illustrations, you'll notice there's practically no straight lines. every stroke is rounded. Even with his selective extreme hatching on things like fur and clothing, those are still like loose and droopy, and everything's just like, ooh, ooh. Makes sense why he was so fitting as a children's illustrator. Everything is so lively and imaginative. Even the buildings and machinery look alive and less like background scenery, more like their own individual subjects within the piece or their own characters within the story. Nobody can out whimsy the Seuss. It's so silly and bizarre that like to us and our parents' generation, like he's known for his books. You know what I mean? He's like the children's book author. That's like his thing. That's what he's known for. But but before that, it was like this whole other thing. It's not until you examine his career as a collective that you realize there's a couple decades the whole time he was recognized for his illustrations for various advertisements, notably Flint. What does that mean to you and I? Not shit. The Grinch? Yo, baby, I know that guy. I know that guy. Another Seuss fact. Okay, throughout his career, he maintained a desire to make a feature film, which he did eventually get the opportunity of doing with the adaptation of his film, The 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T, which he'd go on to regard as the greatest failure of his career. He said enough of that and vowed to never dip his toes back in that pool. Hollywood, what did you do to Ted Geisel? What'd you do to Dr. Seuss, Hollywood? Answer up.
Quickly.
It's a shame how poorly adapted his films were like after his death, because there's so much potential in literally like everything that he has. And I mean, I liked the Lorax. I really liked the Lorax when I was little. So what do you guys think? Do you have a favorite Dr. Seuss book? Did you know of these midnight paintings? If so, which one's your favorite? Mine is the Great Cat Continuum. Oh, and one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish.